All right, everybody, welcome back. Good morning. Happy Monday. Hope you guys are doing well. And we're going to continue on with our little video series talking about the most valuable players on the 2025 Seattle Seahawks. And now we are in the top 5. We have counted down from 12 and we have now gotten to number 5. So things are getting very real here. And this one is there's a lot that goes into this one, right? There's a lot that goes into talking about this particular player, and it's really hard to get a firm sense of where he should really be on a list like this. But I'm pretty happy with where I've placed this player, and I know that there's going to be a lot of disagreement on my precise ranking here, but it is where I've landed. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks, and today's player is Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is, in my estimation, the 5th most valuable Seattle Seahawk for the 2025 season. And there's a lot of things that go into that ranking. I think that you can make an argument that he should be higher because he is the quarterback, and quarterback is the most important position in football by a pretty good margin. I think you can make the argument that he should be lower because this is a team that is mostly defined by being a run first, defense first squad, and the quarterback isn't asked to do anything over the top crazy the way that a team like, say, the Rams asks their quarterback to do, or a team like the Patriots asks their quarterback to do. So it's complicated. But I think this is probably about the right place to put him. And I think that the reasons why you rank him this high in the top 5 are fairly obvious. The guy had a good season. Like, even if you just want to take a look at the raw box score numbers and just talk about him in a very general sense, he had a career high in completion percentage, almost 68% completion. He had over 4,000 yards on a team that did not throw the ball as much as almost every other team in football. He had 25 touchdowns. The Seahawks, under his guidance, had one of the best rates of big plays in the passing game for most of the season. And the important thing to remember here, as much as the Seahawks were a run first team for 2025, it wasn't until pretty close to the end of the season that they were actually good at it. They were a team that would run the ball into the line of scrimmage and just pound it over and over again for a couple of yards just to keep the offense balanced. They weren't really good at running the ball until you got near late December and January and February. Sam Darnold, he didn't get asked to throw the ball a lot, but he had to make some very important throws for this team to keep their head above water offensively and score points. So, yeah, there are some things you could say with Sam Darnold in terms of his usage, and it is totally fair to say that Seattle's a run-first team, more than almost any other team in football. There are only a couple teams out there that run the ball more than Seattle, but Sam Darnold was leaned on for so many big-time throws, so many throws down the field, and let's think about the circumstances here. It wasn't I know it's not his first year in the offense. It was his first year with Clint Kubiak, at least as an offensive coordinator. It was his first year with this team. And while we did have one receiver that had one of the greatest seasons in NFL history, it's not like he had an incredible array of talent around him. It's not like he was throwing the ball to Randy Moss and Chris Carter and Jerry Rice here. He was throwing the ball to a receiver having a transcendent season, but what then? He had Cooper Kupp, clearly a past his prime Cooper Kupp. He had half a season from Rashid Shaheed, who wasn't fully integrated. He had half a season from Torrey Horton. He had A.J. Barner, a good but not elite tight end. He didn't have the greatest targets in the world. If you like sports, then the best way to make them even better and more exciting is using the Prize Picks app, where it always feels good to be right. Prize Picks makes daily fantasy simple. Just pick more or less on your favorite players and build lineups with a few taps. Whatever sport you're into, and obviously we are now firmly into the NFL offseason, so we're all about baseball. We got some basketball, we got some hockey, whatever it is you like. Prize Picks gives you a fun way to stay locked in while you're watching. Definitely make sure to use the promo code HMA. Prize Picks is hooking up users with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. If you use that promo code, that is HMA. I've had a great time on Prize Picks so far, so definitely get on over to it, check it out, and make sure to get your lineups. And don't forget about Team Picks, where you can pick winners, spreads, and totals on any major game. So download the app now, use HMA, and get on over to Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And remember, always gamble responsibly. And while his offensive line was pretty good in pass protection for most of the year, Darnold does own a lot of the effective pass protection that we had through much of the season, in the sense that his mobility in the pocket and his ability to call things out pre-snap were a big part of that. So I think that overall, even though there are things you can pick apart when it comes to Sam Darnold's season, you still have to give him a lot of credit for hitting so many big throws and making so many throws down the field and being very efficient and effective with the throws he had, even if the offense didn't lean on him the way other offenses lean on their quarterback. So that's the kind of the upshot here, right? He was very, very efficient. He attacked downfield. He made it work without having the greatest supporting cast. It was a good supporting cast overall. But there were a lot of problems throughout the season, and Sam Darnold helped paper over a lot of that stuff with his play. And then I think you have some of the more meta elements of the um external things going on with Sam Darnold. He was someone who had a big time resurgent, come out of nowhere, big season for Minnesota in 2024. Minnesota decided they didn't want to keep him despite that great season. Came to Seattle. Some people thought he was going to be good. Some people thought he was going to be bad. Some people, like me, were more in the middle. But overall, I think that there was a lot of doubt, a lot of question marks about what we were getting here. Darnold was a guy who had one good season in the NFL, and it had come throwing to maybe the best wide receiver in football in Justin Jefferson. It had come with a brilliant offensive mind in Kevin O'Connell, and there was a sense that he wouldn't necessarily be able to replicate it in Seattle. And on some level, he didn't replicate it, but he still played at a really high level. And the things that changed in 2025 were relatively understandable when you consider the circumstances. He didn't get to throw it as much. He didn't have a Justin Jefferson to throw the ball to. I know he had JSN, but at least in Minnesota, you've got a little bit more going on there with a guy like a Jordan Addison. He didn't really have even a Jordan Addison in Seattle this last year. So he, I think, even with some of the things that he did that weren't great, and there were things that I am going to get into that weren't great here with Darnold, he did about as good as I think you could have reasonably hoped. And again, you got to be careful with the box score stuff. Pro Football Focus had him ranked as the 10th best quarterback in football. His passing grade, by the way, was 8th best in football, so they thought he was one of the better quarterbacks in football. He did ultimately make the Pro Bowl, which I know he didn't play in it, of course, because he was playing in the Super Bowl, but in my mind, pretty much deserved. And the other thing that really stands out here is how good he was in every area of the field. Like, there are some areas here, you can look at this passing chart for his 2025 season. There's some areas where he's a little bit better than other areas, but overall, he remained at the very least effective in all 12 quadrants. And the turnovers are the one thing, right? When you're talking about Sam Darnold, the one thing that you can fairly criticize him for, I think, are the turnovers. He had 20 turnovers over the course of the 2025 season, leading the NFL. And I do think it is fair to hold that against him and say he can't be among the most valuable players with all those turnovers, because we don't even ask him to drop back that much compared to other quarterbacks. And on the surface, yeah, you would look at that and say, hey, we got a problem here. Sam Darnold gets to turn around and hand the ball off more than just about any other quarterback out there. Why is he leading the league in turnovers? But I think the 2025 season is a great case study in why turnovers tend to get a little bit overstated in the modern NFL. He had 20 turnovers last year, led the league. How could a team with a quarterback that leads the league in turnovers win 14 games, have the the third ranked scoring in football? And I know if you take out the defensive and special teams touchdowns, it's more like seventh or eighth. But how could all those things happen if turnovers are some end all be all of how effective you are as a quarterback? The answer is it's not. Yeah, you'd prefer having fewer turnovers, but there are things in this world way worse than having a quarterback that turns the ball over. We had a quarterback for a decade in Seattle who almost never turned the ball over in Russell Wilson. And whether or not he was playing at a really high level or really not playing that effectively at all, the correlation with turnovers was pretty minimal for the most part. In fact, some would argue that some of his best seasons came in years where he did turn it over a little bit more than he typically did, and it was worth it. It was fine. So I think that while you'd prefer that he stop turning the ball over so much, we should also use 2025 as a case study in why turnovers are not the end of the world. Your job as an offense is to score points. Your job as a quarterback is to lead your team to touchdowns and field goals. That's going to be more important than whether or not you have the occasional drive. And even in extreme examples, it's only a little bit more than one a game and in a turnover. So even that to me is overstated a little bit. And I think the proof is in the pudding when it comes to the 2025 season. If turnovers were the disaster that some people take them to be, then there's no way we would have had such a good season with a quarterback with this many turnovers. So you got that, and you have the issue of the playoffs, right? Sam Darnold didn't do a ton in the playoffs necessarily. He was very, very handcuffed against the 49ers. He didn't have the best Super Bowl. He was good, but not great. But that Rams game, which realistically was the Super Bowl, that might have been the best game of his career. What he did in that game is so over the top amazing. And for him to go through the entire postseason with 0 turnovers, it's you make up for a lot of the stuff that didn't necessarily go your way when you're doing stuff like that. That he only took 6 sacks in 3 postseason games. So, in my mind, he should be top 5. Not going to put him higher than that because, again, I do think that it is a run-first team that leans on their defense more than their offense. And there were bad games. There were bad moments. The first Rams game, rough. The 49ers game to start the season, yeah, pretty bad. There were bad moments for Sam Darnold. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to whitewash everything. The Carolina game in week, I think it was 17. Didn't really bring much to the table there. Rough game for him. But there were also some brilliant moments. Like him managing to come back and win that second Rams game. That's something that takes a very special kind of quarterback to do. And you can say that it takes a flawed quarterback to have the bad game that he was having before the comeback. But what he did in the fourth quarter of that second Rams game in Lumen, that's that shows you that there's something really special there that we as that cannot be captured in a box score necessarily. And what he did in 2025 as the leader of the offense, as someone that bounced back from some of his not so good games, that bounced back from his not good plays, and delivered in the biggest game of the year, and ultimately got this team where they needed to go, even if it was occasionally a little bit bumpy, even though we occasionally criticized him. I think he's 5th. All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks. I know this video went a little bit longer than the other ones, and I was a little all over the place, but this one's complicated. This one's hard. It's really hard to drill to Sam Darnold's value to this team because we're so accustomed to a quarterback being the most valuable player on most teams. But as much as Darnold is more valuable than some people are going to give him credit for, I don't think he's our most valuable player for 2025. And I think I laid it out the best I could. Okay, I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Everyone have a good rest of your day. Maybe another video later, maybe not, but see you soon.